Okay, everyone, good morning. Welcome to Thursday's edition of the Morning Briefing. We're into May, John, the month when
Yes.
trophies are handed out.
Yeah, it should be a celebratory Celtic month. The title's wrapped up. It should only be good things ahead. I've been saying this for a while, but it should be a fantastic few weeks from a Celtic's perspective, and Celtic are getting good news out early as well.
Yes, we're going to touch on that. First of all, just a quick word from our sponsor. This Celtic Way video is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. With thousands of jobs across Glasgow, Edinburgh and the surrounding areas, you'll find the one at S1 Jobs. Start your search today. Yes, a bit of kind of semi-breaking news, John, in the last hour or so.
Yeah, it's been in the pipeline for a while. I think everyone's expected that Celtic were going to extend their deal with Adidas, but it's finally been announced this morning. And you might be wondering why does this matter? Why is this significant? This is all corporate chat, etc., etc. But the fact is that the merchandise deal with Adidas brings in a huge amount of income to Celtic every year. You know, almost 30%. I think the last financial year Celtic's merchandise income was £30.1 million, which is a massive chunk. It's increased year on year since Adidas have been on board since the 2020-21 season. And it's hugely significant for that reason. It gives Celtic the ability to spend more money and be more flexible and hopefully put a team in the park that everyone can be proud of. And I think if you look back to the New Balance deal. Now the financial year end in 2020 is a bit skewed because of the whole COVID thing, but in the financial year end in 2019, Celtic's merchandise income was only £18 million. So that's a £12 million increase, and that's year on year. That's not a one-off £12 million bonus. You know, that's sustainable income that has been increased and put into the club year on year over the last 5 years and will continue. And I believe the Adidas kit deal's up to a decade. You know, this isn't a short-term agreement. It's not a wee extension. Celtic are in with Adidas for the next decade, and yeah, that I think it's hugely significant for the club.
Yeah, I think it's been reported pretty widely now that it's a 10-year extension, and it's worth a hell of a lot of money. Clearly, good news from a club point of view. Adidas will be very happy with it. Celtic will be very happy. I just kind of, I guess this is probably going to fall on deaf ears, but I just hope that there's a bit of a, I don't know, understanding that we don't want to take it too far with the Adidas stuff in terms of, you know, releasing even more kits a season. I mean, I guess, I mean, when you're talking about the money we're bringing in, that's obviously great news, but I guess part of that would be simply because there's been far more kits and stuff announced as well. I mean, we get a home kit every year now. There's one leaked last night. I think we've got 4 or 5 kits a season almost at this stage. Not to put a downer on things, because it's clearly good news, but I just hope that there's an understanding that there's only so much we can ask fans to pay for.
I don't think that's a downer at all. I think it's a reasonable point that at some point there's going to be, I wouldn't say a breaking point, but there's going to be some sort of plateau between the income that is coming in and Celtic fans' hunger for it, because it can't be forgotten. This is powered by supporters.
Yeah.
This money, you know, this isn't automatic money that Adidas are paying Celtic. The £30 million merchandise income that Celtic bring in every year, it's paid for by supporters on top of all the money that they're paying for tickets and the increase in ticket costs and the increase in cost in general across society in Scotland and beyond. It's a lot of money, and there will be a point where it stops increasing year on year. But I think the idea is to have some sort of sustainable income that fans are at least happy with or tolerate, and that does produce income for the club, but also doesn't take fans too much for granted, which I think is what you're saying. Like, you can't oversaturate the market, because there will be a turn-off. And considering Celtic are locked in with Adidas now for the next decade, it's important that they get the long-term relationship right, rather than just, you know, going for that quick buck and maybe pushing it too far in a year, because fans will turn against the partnership or will turn against the brand. We've seen that, we've seen that before in clubs all across football.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly, you know, very powerful what we've got here. Celtic make a lot of money. We could be signed up to Castor, for example, and would sell a lot of jerseys. A small brand like that, and we could even sell jerseys. But Celtic teaming up with someone like Adidas, I think there is still an element of novelty there, because I think when you initially saw Celtic going with Adidas, it was such a big announcement at the time. The famous three stripes down the Celtic shirt, and I think it's a very powerful, brand, or a couple of brands coming together. So I just hope that things continue in the right vein. And as I say, it's going to fall on deaf ears, because we're going to continue to have St. Patrick's Day kits released every year. And I guess there's a market for them, because people buy them, and people will argue no one's forcing you to buy it. I just hope that, as you say, there's an understanding there. Just talking generally about Celtic, I mean, the club, the place we're in at the moment, it's hardly news to all watching, and morning to you all, by the way, but it's hardly news to say that Celtic are in a pretty good place. But like, when you hear stuff like that, I mean, we're in such a strong place at the moment.
Yeah, and I think it's a strong underpinning as well. Like, it's not... I don't think Celtic are too reliant on player sales. Obviously, player sales is a factor in terms of the income that comes into the club. But if you look at the income that comes into the club, it's largely underpinned by supporters. And I've spoken about this a lot over the years, and I think it's sometimes forgotten a little bit. But Celtic's season ticket income and merchandise income accounts for more than half the club's entire revenue. And I don't think the club can take that for granted whatsoever. And obviously, a large chunk of it is the success that the success that the Champions League money brings in, and all that. Yeah. So that's an element of it too. The club need to continue to qualify for the large tournament, and that's a big, massive amount of money too. But it's a sustainable form of income, because it's generated by people who truly care about the club and want to invest their money in the club on a year-on-year basis. And as long as the club get that relationship with supporters right, then that will continue. But that relationship with supporters is so crucial.
Yeah, there's money coming from everywhere, and I think it's a great point you make. This is supporters. This is men and women putting money into Celtic. This isn't Celtic getting all their money from like a TV deal. I know the Champions League is very important and worth a hell of a lot of money to us. But I just think the amount of money fans put in via merchandise. I mean, season tickets are out again. Someone was saying there they've just renewed today. David was saying season tickets renewed today, and good on you, David. But like, when you add in the ticket stuff, and you can kind of see why the Green Brigade on Saturday are protesting, because I know that wasn't Celtic's decision to put those ticket prices up, but God, it's expensive to support Celtic these days. And I think when other fans have a go at Celtic for, you're winning and it must be boring and all of that, I guess part of why it's not boring is because we're all putting so much into this financially, in terms of the time we spend thinking, talking, going to games, etc. It's an expensive thing being a Celtic fan these days.
Yeah, and I think what's important as well is that when we talk about all this money coming into the club, it's not arbitrary, and I don't think it should be forgotten that with the increased revenue, increased money coming into the club, it raises expectations of what the club do with that money. And that's why there's been so much chat around that over the last couple of years, because Celtic have an excess of money. They've got a lot of money in the bank. There's a perception that perhaps they're not investing that as wisely, or investing that to maximise the potential of that. We'll see. We'll see over the coming months. We'll see in the transfer window. We'll see what more infrastructure projects they've got coming up. Obviously, they've renovated Barrafield into a new training centre for the youth teams and the women's side. We'll see how it all pans out, but it's important that Celtic are aware of that, and I'm sure they are aware of that. I mean, they're not stupid people, but again, all this money coming into the club does raise expectations, and there will be increasing questions asked of are Celtic maximising their potential and their resources, and hopefully with Brendan Rodgers at the helm, we can do that for this year and years to come.
It's funny this was announced just, I guess, hours after the potential home kit for next season was leaked. That's it there, everyone. I don't know if you can see that too clearly, but quite similar looking to the one last season, I think, in terms of the kind of black details on it. But it seems to be tartan, John. This hasn't been confirmed, but as is usually the case when you see these things, it turns out to be the case. Are you a fan of that?
I'm not a huge fan of the tartan kit that I've seen online, I have to say. But listen, I'm not really one who, I don't really buy replica kits and all that.
Yeah.
I buy a bit of club merch in there, but I'm not really into the kit culture and buying all the new kits and getting all the new gear. So it kind of passes me by. It's not for me. I'm not the target market for it. But we'll see how it goes down. I'm sure they'll sell quite a lot of them, regardless of what some of the online opinion is. What about yourself? You like a bit of Celtic merch, don't you?
I do, yeah. I don't mind it. As I say, I just can't go over it. I think it looks really similar to last season. Maybe there's a limit on how different you can make the hoops look, and I guess that's why they're trying these ambitious things. My two gripes would be, one, why do we have to have a new home kit every season? This is a relatively new thing. We could have had, this season's kit, cracker. I love this season's kit. Just let that roll over to next year. I know the reason why they bring out a new one every year. It's so fans feel, I think someone was talking about FOMO there. And I think there's a certain element of that. People feel, oh, they've got a new kit out, I must go and buy it. And again, no one's forcing you to buy it, but you feel like you should. But I would love to just keep the kit for 2 seasons like we used to, certainly the home kits. Second point, keep the hoops simple. Don't have tartan going into it. Certainly don't have what you had last year with, was it the stained glass window or whatever it was. Keep it simple. I like a bit of yellow in the home kit, or a kind of gold or something like that, but it seems to be black these days. Peter saying, just seen the new home top. It's not very good. Need to move on from Adidas. Got a bit of news for you, Peter. I don't know if you just missed that, but bad news that we might be signed up for another decade with Adidas. You can hold fire on that. Ryan likes it, just not the black Adidas stripes. Hopefully the third kit will have an original Adidas badge. There has been talk of that.
Yeah, I think the idea is that Celtic are joining the elite group of clubs that Adidas are partnershiped across Europe, and that there might be more premium merch and more custom and bespoke merchandise for Celtic in the pipeline. And that's something that people who follow football fashion culture, I think, will appreciate and will generate money for the club. And I think Adidas are at the forefront of kit manufacture at the moment. These things go in cycle. When I was a young guy, Nike were the big kit manufacturers that everyone wanted to associate with. Not these days, though. I think it's more Adidas, and I think it has been Adidas in the last few years. So I think if Celtic are partnered up with that, then that is a good thing.
Okay, that's all the kit chat out of the way, everyone. You can read more about that on the website. You can also catch Tony's chat with Odin Tiago Home, which I read earlier, and it's very long. There's lots of detail in there, so you can sit down and spend a good 5 or 10 minutes reading that. Marco Telly was speaking yesterday as well. Sorry, John, you want to come in there?
No, just on the home thing. Yeah, I think it's good because you don't often get access to current Celtic players in that environment. It's, a lot of the PR around Celtic is pretty rehearsed, and it's short snippets, and it's very controlled. But LAFC were fantastic with us and gave us access to home, and Tony got the opportunity to have a really good chat with them, and which I think is reflected in the piece and kind of what he's talking about and kind of his ambitions going forward. Now, whether Home returns to Celtic and becomes an impressive Celtic player, I think the jury is very much out on. But it's good to hear that's what his ambition is. To be honest, when Home left for MLS, my assumption was that was the end of his Celtic time, and he probably it was the end of his investment in Celtic as well, and his interest in Celtic, because it just seemed like such a pretty big lifestyle and change and move. But the fact that he wants to come to Glasgow is a credit to him, so we'll see how all that pans out. But yeah, there's a few comments from Celtic loanees doing the rounds. He mentioned Marco Tilio there in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to bring up I guess the kind of comparison there between Tilio and Home, because Tilio, who comes across a really nice guy, and it's a good interview he's done with Optus Sport here, and he speaks about a range of issues, and he's very complimentary about Celtic and about Brendan Rodgers and all of that stuff. But I think reading between the lines, you can kind of feel from him he doesn't really see his future at Celtic. I think he made a couple of comments. There was one comment he made. He said, well, I'm still contracted to Celtic, as if that was almost like a bit of a kind of surprise or a moot point, I guess. And he also spoke about he was asked in a year's time, where do you want to be? And he said, in Europe, playing regularly, which isn't the same as saying at Celtic playing regularly. Like Odin Home would have argued it. That's not a slight on Tilio at all. I just think it's him probably being honest, and I think most people would argue he doesn't have much of a future. So it's interesting that Home feels he potentially does.
Yeah, I mean, I like players being honest and open about what their intentions are. I don't think anyone, clubs like to hide away players and what they really think, and I think it's good for the players themselves, and it's good for players' relationship with supporters that everyone knows what their intentions are and what they're feeling. So it is an interesting contrast. I would like to see more of these interviews with Celtic players appear in, that get into the heart of the matter about what they really think, rather than just what they feel like they should say in the media. So yeah,
Yeah,
fair play to home, fair play to Tillio as well. Like you say, it's not a bad thing that Tillio doesn't want to come back and play for Celtic. That's just life. That's just reality. But if
yeah.
at least everyone knows that, then then there's no real problem.
Luke McCowan yesterday having a bit of fun. Sorry, you did touch on this, I think, with Ryan yesterday, but a wee playful dig at Rangers that people are kind of picking up on. And I quite enjoyed it.
I enjoy it as well, Hamish. Again, this is something I enjoy. I don't mind a bit of rivalry and a bit of back and forth. Like, I mean, people may or may not know, but I follow quite a lot of American sports, and that's part and parcel of the entire
Yeah,
culture around their sport is that they're not afraid to say what they think. They're not afraid to say something that might get the backs up of opposition players or teams. Like, it's all part of it, and I enjoy that aspect of sport and the media around sport, and I don't think anyone should, you know, shy away from it. Obviously, Luke McCown, what he said, it was nothing major. It was just a wee dig
no.
of we'll never find out, and it's just that cheeky wee dig. But we like that. I like that, and even in the build up to a derby, I like that too. I don't think Luke McCown's going to look daft if Celtic get beat on Sunday. It's just he said what he said, and I think people enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean that's a really important point for me is that he's saying it after the league has been won. Like the
Yeah.
league is. I know we've still got matches to fulfil or to play in the league, but the league has been won. Same as Cameron Carter-Vickers last year. Remember him after a few beers, giving it all the three in a row unlucky Rangers stuff. The issue for me would be if they were doing this halfway through the season when the job
Well,
wasn't done. So I enjoyed it.
well, you remember Jackamakas caused quite the stir
Yeah,
before Celtic
yeah,
had won the league. He eventually was proven right by the end of that season. But he caused quite a stir. But again, I even enjoyed when Jackamakas said that. I enjoyed that at the time. It was maybe wasn't
yeah.
the wisest of moves, but I enjoyed it. Again, someone saying in the chat, it can come back and bite you a little bit, and that again, you've got to choose your words wisely and pick your moments, and that could have come back and bit Jackamakas, but it didn't, and everyone enjoyed it, and it made Jackamakas more popular with Celtic supporters. That interview, that one, it's like when Chris Sutton arrived and said, he's come to put Rangers in their place. Like, people really enjoyed that. It made Chris Sutton almost an instant hero with supporters. So,
Yeah.
it can be a weapon for good, shall we say?
Yeah, don't mind it at all. Okay, we're building ahead to the derby this weekend. It's kind of creeping up on us ever so slightly because we're at Thursday already, and I just feel like there's been so much news happening this week that we've known that this game's coming, but I guess just so much has been happening. We've been celebrating a league title for one, but we're approaching Sunday and starting to think about the game, I guess, and just wondering if Celtic will maybe fancy showing up in one of these derbies, wondering how Rangers feel about this. Can they get themselves up for the derby, given that their season is over? They don't have any trophies to go for.
This is where my own hubris, I don't want to say too much. I'm being a bit of I'm contradicting myself a little bit here in terms of I want the players to be chatting about this, but I remember speaking quite a lot in advance of the Celtic Park game and thinking that the real Celtic are going to turn up, the real Celtic are going to show what they're all about, the real Celtic are going to, excise the demons of Ibrox, etc., etc., etc. And then what did we see? We saw one of the worst Celtic performances in recent years against Rangers in that match at Celtic Park. So it's hard to know what Celtic will turn up. And I think the noises from the Celtic camp were similar in the build-up to that Celtic Park game than they are now, And so it's hard to know. But you can't help but think Celtic going there, whether they say it or not, and whether some of the players believe it or not, they do have a bit of a point to prove in that derby for their own personal pride and for their own personal rivalries with their Rangers opponents, and for Brendan Rodgers too. Brendan Rodgers, as we know, and we spoke about this at the time, he was embarrassed after that derby at Celtic Park. Brendan Rodgers was embarrassed in that press conference. He didn't like that at all. And it's going to be interesting to see what kind of reaction he gets out of his players for this one. I've got a feeling it could be a good day for Celtic, I have to say. That's just me. I don't know about you, whether you think it's going to be more difficult, but I think the fights have also been knocked and stuffed out of this Rangers team. And they're definitely in the last dregs of what has been a horrendous season for them.
I mean, the easy thing, the thing we always say before these derbies is if we turn up, we'll be fine. We're a better team than them. But you do wonder, recently in the derby, I guess part of it is we haven't turned up. But there's also been the element, I think, to be fair, that Rangers have turned up and have done their job. They've been up for these derbies. It's not just been a case of us being completely off it. Like Rangers have kind of, I think, at times made us look off it. So I think going into the derby, there is questions about both teams. How do Celtic fancy this? We know the team are motivated from what they're saying, but how does that transmit to the pitch? Because, it's a big game for us, but we have already secured the league title. So the team need to act like it's just as important as if the league was on the line for me. But I think there's also the Rangers question here, and I think it's a genuine question now. I think while they had their Europa League run going on, their season still felt alive, and that was kind of keeping them going, even though their domestic form, apart from games against us, has been pretty awful for months, hasn't it? But I just wonder now the fact that they've gone out of the Europa League, and that this is literally all they've got, their only big game they've got left this season. That could work both ways. Have they already kind of lost it, or do they get themselves up one more game? So I think genuinely there is, rather than just focusing on ourselves, and obviously at Lennoxtown they'll only be focusing on themselves, but I think for us viewing the game, there's two questions. There's how are Celtic up for this, and how are Rangers up for this?
I think I think you're right about it working both ways, because is it also maybe their season has been so pathetic that this is their cup final? This is their last chance to prove something to their own supporters. I think everyone will acknowledge Barry Ferguson's not getting that job, so I don't think that's on the line. And I think maybe had their form been more sustained, then that might have been an added element to it in terms of like, this is a referendum on Barry Ferguson's future, but he's not going to get that job, I don't think. So I don't think that's even an undercurrent there. So it's all about how they feel within themselves, I suppose. And I think they'll at least project that it feels like a cup final for them. Like it feels like a big game for them. But whether that plays out in the intensity of the match is another matter, because you can, as we know, you can say anything, you can feel any way you want in the build up to kick-off, you build up to that first whistle. But if you don't have the intensity right in the match, then it can go badly wrong for you. And we saw that at Celtic Park for Celtic. So yeah, they need to be, well, Celtics definitely need to be up for that from minute one, because I think nobody at Ibrox, no home supporters, and there'll be a lot of them outnumbering the Celtic lot. They'll all be desperate to, land another bloody nose on Celtic this season, Yeah,
because as we say, that's all they've got, and they'll well, they've not got the European stuff now, so beating us again is all they've got. Two big things, like Callum McGregor's back for this one. I know he played at Ibrox, and I know we were terrible at Ibrox, but I do think we missed him at Celtic Park. It just felt like there was no control in that midfield, so I think he'll make a difference. And also I think us having fans at Ibrox this time will change the dynamic a bit. I don't know exactly in what way, but it's obviously a good thing that we're not going to Ibrox with no fans, like has been the case in recent times. So I think it will be a fiery game. I think tensions are kind of boiling over slightly over the past couple of derbies, especially the way they behaved in the last derby. And I hope the players are hurting, and I hope they go out and want to show their champions.
I'm getting a sense from what Callum McGregor's been in the media a lot this week, getting a sense from what Callum McGregor's saying and feeling that this one's it's never really personal, is it? But this one is about as personal as it gets for Callum McGregor's own pride and own professional pride. You can sense this one in Callum McGregor, and I think he will have the team up for it. And it's good that he's fit. And Callum McGregor's, in fact, he's been excellent since he came back from injury for me, and he's going to be so important to that match, so important to that match on Sunday. I think it is going to be a bit of a fighting. I don't think it's. We joked about this on the show yesterday, but if Celtic lose, everyone will be saying on Monday, oh, well, it was a dead rubber anyway. And if Rangers lose, all the Rangers fans will be saying, oh, well, it didn't really matter anyway. The reality is it does matter. It matters to a lot of supporters. It matters to the players. It matters to both managers. So I don't think you can really see, and I don't think it will have the feeling of a dead rubber Sunday. I could be wrong. It could be a total damp squib, but I've just got the feeling that both teams are going to be up for it.
Yeah, I mean, Tony made the point earlier in the week that he felt it was a bigger game for us, or a bit more important for us, and I kind of get what he means, in that I just think the fact we've lost the last few, and it's one of the big things that we wanted to tick off for the end of the season, isn't it? I mean, win the league, win at Ibrox, and win the Scottish Cup. And if the team can do that, the thing is, like, they're capable of doing it. That's the frustration in the last few derbies that we haven't turned up. And obviously, as I say, Rangers have played well in the derbies, but also, we have been poor as well. We haven't been at it in certainly the last couple of derbies. So yeah, you just hope that the players are itching this week. I hope it's a proper week. I know they got a couple of days off, but they were back in from Tuesday, I think. So hopefully they're itching.
Yeah, it's funny you say that it's when a few weeks ago it was one of the big things that people were checking off as important in the tail end of the season. I remember people talking about this Ibrox game as much more important in the wake of the Celtic Park performance and defeat. The game at Ibrox was almost the most important game left in the season for a lot of people at that point. So it's funny to look back on how people felt in the wake of that game, and then the feeling this week where, well, it's not quite as dramatic as all that with the League One, etc., etc. But I think deep down, everyone before kickoff on Sunday will go, "No, this is one you definitely want to win. Like, this is one you want Celtic to get over whatever has happened in the last few derbies. They've conceded a lot of goals to Rangers. There's a wee bit of a trend developing there, and I think just stamping their foot down and going, no, we're still in control of this rivalry and this derby going into next season, which could be transformative summer for Rangers, but also a season, a summer of refresh for Celtic. I think it's just a good reminder to everyone, isn't it? If Celtic go out to Ibrox and put on a really commanding performance, it'll just make everything feel more energetic and positive ahead of what is actually the main event at the end of the season, which is the Scottish Cup final.
Bit of chat in the chat about Sinizalo. Is there any chance of Casper being back for the weekend? Would you play Casper if he's back?
I'm not sure on Casper specifically, but I know that he was involved in the warm-up at Tannadice in a way that wasn't just tapping the ball about. I think he was more involved in the warm-up. I know that he's been in training. I'm not sure what his training status is. Obviously, that's something we're going to find out tomorrow. Again, importantly, we're going to find out from Brendan Rodgers what the true status of Jota's situation is. There's been a lot of online rumours, a lot of social media rumours about the severity of his injury, and we're going to find out definitively, hopefully, if all the scans have been done and completed this week, from Rodgers tomorrow on Jota, which I think is important because I think everyone was hoping that Jota would have a really good pre-season. I think that's important for Jota's second journey at Celtic. So we're going to find out about that. I guess we'll find out a bit about Kasper Schmeichel, but I think Schmeichel will be back for that Scottish Cup final, at least.
Okay. Sinizalo's done pretty well. It might almost not be the worst thing to have him go. I certainly feel all right about having him go. He made a couple of good saves recently, hasn't he? There was one he made was a St Johnstone. I think it was offside, but he made a really good save. And I'm sure there was one at the weekend as well early on in the game that he maybe saved with his feet. So I've been quite impressed, and he's generally keeping clean sheets now as well. But big test for him on Sunday if he starts, so a chance to find out more about him.
It's a game. The derby is always a game that people come to definitive opinions about players on, whether it's a match of consequence or it's a dead rubber or whatever you want to call it. It's always a game where someone will watch that game, make an opinion about a player, and known football supporters, but they'll hold that opinion to their heart until the day they die, regardless of any evidence that comes back in front of them. So yeah, it's a big day for Sinizalo. It's a big day for a lot of the players. Again, I think the biggest compliment you can pay to Sinizalo is that nobody's really talking about him that much, and that's exactly what you want from your backup goalkeeper coming in to replace Kasper Schmeichel. That could easily have been a difficult thing for Celtic or been a real weakness in Celtic's game, because Kasper Schmeichel's been superb this season, but Sinizalo's coming in, been really steady for me, pretty good in possession most of all, and he has popped up with a good save or two that shows off that side of his game too, so I have no problems with him playing at Ibrox if he has to.
Yes. Okay, that'll do us for today. Plenty more on the website, everyone. I'm just checking what we've got on there at the moment. You've got Odin Thiago Home chatting about Celtic, the exclusive Tony had with him. There's a analysis piece on Cameron Carter-Vickers from Alan Morrison. There's a number of other news bits you might not have caught. Interesting comments from Callum McGregor on James Forrest and a private moment they shared in the Tannadice dressing room after the game. Loads going on, John.
Yeah, Tony was speaking to Callum McGregor a lot on Monday. There's just its follow up. There's various embargoes in the Scottish press that I won't bore you with the details, but essentially it comes out over the course of the week. So even if you saw Callum McGregor speaking on Monday, etc., there'll be new stuff up on the website that you might have missed. So just go and have a look if you want to have a wee look at that.
Great stuff. Thank you, everyone, and appreciate you all tuning in. Appreciate those of you who watch afterwards tuning in as well. Comment away, let us know what you made of the video, what you made of the various stories we're talking about. And yes, we'll continue the build up to the big derby. We'll have the final morning briefing of the week tomorrow. Chat to you then.